The cabin of the luxurious jetliner shimmered under soft, golden lighting. Polished mahogany accents gleamed beside smooth, leather-lined first-class seats. This wasn't your average flight. It was a private executive airline, one that catered exclusively to diplomats, CEOs, and royalty. A hush lingered as passengers settled in, many dressed in bespoke suits and tailored outfits, heads buried in laptops or quietly sipping champagne. Among them was a woman who moved with quiet grace and confidence. She wore no flashy jewelry. No designer logos screamed from her outfit. She was composed, modest, and elegant. Her name? Michelle Obama. She had just wrapped up a discreet, high-level negotiation overseas. Tired but satisfied, she boarded the plane alone, as she often did when traveling in a private capacity. No fanfare, no entourage, just her and a desire to get home in peace. But peace would be the last thing she'd find in first class that day. At the front of the cabin stood Allison Woods, the lead flight attendant, sharp-shouldered, sharp-tongued, and razor-focused on appearances. Her uniform was immaculate, every hair in place. She had worked in luxury aviation for years and prided herself on maintaining standards. And when Michelle walked in and sat down in seat 1A, something in Allison's demeanor shifted. Her eyes flicked over Michelle's understated attire, her lack of entourage, her quiet confidence. Too casual, Allison thought. Too comfortable. She didn't recognize Michelle, and in her mind, that meant only one thing. This woman didn't belong. Allison strode briskly down the aisle, heels clicking, posture rigid. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her voice dipped in faux politeness. "I believe you're in the wrong section." Michelle looked up slowly, her expression calm but alert. "No, I believe this is my assigned seat." Allison's smile tightened. "First class is for select ticket holders only." "I understand. You might want to double-check the passenger manifest," Michelle replied evenly. The tension in the air thickened. Passengers began to glance sideways. Allison didn't budge. "There's nothing to check," she snapped. "I know who's supposed to be here, and who's not." Nearby passengers began whispering. "Maybe she snuck in," one muttered. "Looks like someone's trying to score a free upgrade." Another chuckled under his breath. But Michelle sat still, unbothered. "If you feel the need to escalate this," she said, "feel free to call your supervisor." Allison's jaw clenched. She turned to the junior flight attendant, James, who had been watching the scene unfold. "Escort her to the back," she barked. James hesitated. "Shouldn't we just check the manifest?" "I said move her." "Now." James swallowed hard. The look in Michelle's eyes said volumes. There was strength there, dignity, something unshakable. He didn't move. Michelle adjusted her posture slightly, still composed. Her voice dropped low, calm but firm. "I suggest you think carefully about your next move." Allison scoffed. "Are you threatening me?" "No," Michelle said. "I'm warning you not to make assumptions you can't walk back." At that moment, Allison made a show of folding her arms and raising her voice so nearby passengers could hear. "Ma'am, either move to your assigned seat or I will have security meet you when we land." Michelle remained silent for a beat. Then, in a voice like steel wrapped in silk, she replied, "I'm not going anywhere." As Allison turned away, fuming, Michelle requested a glass of water. Minutes passed. Allison served every passenger around her, skipping Michelle entirely. Finally, as Allison walked by with a nearly empty tray, Michelle spoke again. "Excuse me," she said. "Could I please have some water?" Allison didn't even stop walking. "I'll get to you when I get to you." Michelle shifted slightly in her seat, stretching one leg gently into the aisle. At that exact moment, Allison returned. She saw Michelle's extended leg, and instead of kindly asking her to move, she veered her walk deliberately. Crash! Her foot collided with Michelle's leg. The tray jolted, sending a cascade of water glasses splashing across Michelle's lap. Gasps erupted around the cabin. Allison clutched the tray and yelled, "Watch where you're putting your legs." Michelle blinked in disbelief, glancing down at the soaked fabric on her lap. "You walked into me," she said evenly. "I asked for water, not a bath." Allison's tone grew venomous. "Maybe people like you should be more careful when you're in places you don't belong." Michelle's eyes narrowed. If basic decency is too much to ask, perhaps you're the one who doesn't belong here. The cabin fell silent again. Then Allison snapped. With a sudden motion, she raised her hand and slapped Michelle across the face. The sound echoed through the cabin like a thunderclap. Passengers gasped. A businessman nearby stood up. James covered his mouth in shock. Michelle sat still. Slowly, she turned back to face Allison. Her cheek was red, but her voice was ice. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Allison stepped back, momentarily shaken, but quickly regained her composure. You shouldn't be here anyway. Michelle leaned forward ever so slightly. You'll regret that. James stepped back into the galley, trembling, and pulled out his phone. We have a situation on board, he whispered into the receiver. Moments later, the pilot stepped into the cabin, clearly shaken. Allison, he said sharply. Come with me. I have everything under control, she replied. The pilot didn't flinch. No, you don't. I just got off the phone with operations. The owner of this aircraft is on board. Allison furrowed her brows. So, he turned his head slowly and pointed toward seat 1A. It's Miss Michelle Obama. The cabin erupted in gasps. Allison turned white. That can't be right. Michelle stood slowly. The authority radiated off her like heat. I tried to be patient, she said. I asked for basic respect. I warned you, and you ignored every opportunity to correct yourself. Allison stammered. I didn't know. That's the problem, Michelle said. You didn't want to know. The pilot nodded solemnly. Miss Obama, we'll be making an unscheduled landing. Passengers exchanged stunned glances. A murmur of shock rolled through the aisle. When the jet landed, a black SUV was already waiting on the tarmac. Two sharply dressed assistants stepped aboard. Miss Obama, one of them said with a respectful nod, everything is ready. Michelle took one last look at Allison, then turned to the pilot. I want her removed from my airline. Today. The pilot didn't hesitate. Understood. Allison tried to salvage what was left of her dignity. Please, Miss Obama. I was just doing my job. I didn't mean. Michelle turned. No, she interrupted. You didn't mean to be held accountable. Her voice was calm. Final. I see. And now you will be. At that moment, two uniformed officers boarded the plane. Miss Obama, one said, we receive your report. Are you pressing charges? Michelle nodded. Yes. I expect her held responsible for the assault, as witnessed by an entire cabin. Allison turned pale. This is a misunderstanding. You hit a passenger. On camera. With dozens of witnesses, the officer said. This is not a misunderstanding. This is assault. Handcuffs clicked behind Allison's back. Passengers watched as she was led away. A woman who had strutted down the aisle full of control now walked in silence, her shoulders hunched, her power gone. Michelle turned to the remaining passengers, offering a brief nod. Then she leaned toward James, who stood frozen. You did the right thing, she said quietly. He nodded, visibly relieved. Sometimes it's not about raising your voice. Sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most power. That day, Michelle Obama didn't just defend herself. She reminded the world that dignity doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand its ground. If you've ever been misjudged, disrespected, or underestimated, remember this. The truth always rises. And respect, that should never be up for debate.